Hi, I'm Brent Cook with Exploration Insights. Today we're at the Cordilleran Roundup, which is the premier event, at least in BC, where the geologists get together and actually talk rocks, what's going on. So we're going to look at a couple of companies, real quick review, ask some questions, then we'll discuss it later. And Joe Mazumdar will be joining me later. I'm going to start with Mariana Resources. Eric?
Morning, Brent. How are you?
Good.
Good to be here.
Thanks for agreeing to do this.
No problem at all.
All right, so I know a bit about this. I visited the project last year. It is probably the biggest discovery last year, I would say, given what you've done. And I just want to real quickly go through the geology, what you've got, your resources, and then we'll get into a few questions. Is that good?
Perfect. Can I show you a little bit of core, which would be, most of what we see at Hot Maden, it's a breccia zone, it's subvertical, it's about 50 to 60 meters wide true width. So far we've drilled about 280 meters of length. It's still open to the south. We didn't have the drill permits before. We now have permission to drill further to the south. Mineralization copper gold. It's basically pyrite, chalcopyrite. Interesting, it looks like multi-phase mineralization, so we're not talking about just one event. It looks like we have a main zone which runs a lot of our grade, but there's also some very high grade shoots in this too. So it's clearly multi-phase copper gold mineralization.
As I recall, when you start getting this red chert and busted up rock, that's where the high grade
That's where the grades are better. Yes,
yeah,
exactly.
That's right.
And
that runs right up the guts of it, right?
That's correct. So when you look at it on a section, and in fact the ultra high grade which you mentioned is typically on the eastern side, but it is probably a separate pulse within this shoot. So, but it is a great deposit. Grades are fantastic. They really are quite.
Remind me of the resource.
Yeah. So at the moment, between inferred and indicated, we have 3 million ounces in total. Now the interesting thing about the resource, the average, about half of the resource is running over an ounce per ton gold equivalent. So I think that's an important parameter in this, and the global resource is certainly running north of 10 grams per ton gold equivalent. So,
right. And this is
it's a very high grade resource.
This is in a valley in Turkey.
No, the community is very supportive. Keep in mind too, there was mining here 100 years ago, so the Russians were mining here in this part of the world. A lot of the people are descendants. They've seen mining. They know about mining. But we've had a lot of support from the locals. So it has been a very good. We've had very good interaction with the locals.
Okay, good. So this I mean, to me, and I talked about this when I was there, but this looks like a volcanogenic massive sulfide. Mm-hmm. Multiple pulses, like you say, but a VMS. Yes. With those, it's always, first question, second question is metallurgy. Where are you in regards to metallurgy? What's the recovery look like?
Yeah, good question, Brent. So right now now that we've got the resource out, we're embarking on more detailed systematic metallurgy. Certainly, the initial metallurgy we did was very favourable. We just have gold and copper. We don't have any of the nasties. We don't have we don't have arsenic. We don't have mercury. We don't have antimony. So this is just copper gold, chalcopyrite, pyrite type mineralization. So now what we're doing is what we would think So just to paint the picture, we are looking to get a preliminary economic assessment completed by either the end of Q3 or early Q4 this year.
And does this float?
That's exactly what we do. So what we would do now with the metallurgical test work, which will be part of that PEA, what we would like to do is firstly do a gravity separate to see if we can pull out the coarse gold, and the rest would float very nicely. So the sort of the rough the flow sheet we're working with right now is basically a gravity separate followed by a standard flotation. So it's really off the shelf technology, nothing fancy. So.
Okay, and I guess the third point, always most important usually, is money. Where you stand with money and how much you need to spend this year?
Good question. So the budget for the project this year is $8 million, of which our share will be 2.8. We currently have $2 million in treasury, so we can cover certainly the first half of the year in terms of cash calls, but we will need to raise some money to continue for the rest of the year. So we have about $2 million in treasury right now. So.
Okay, and I guess one more issue I've had from the start is your AIM listing. It's a real pain for people in North America to try and trade on that. Are you going to address that?
We certainly will, Brent. Look, one of the possibilities for us is to bring Hot Maden back to the TSX. I mean, it's just one of the things. If I look at Mariana as a group, the last 6 to 12 months, most of the new shareholders that have come on board have been in the US or Canada. So we've certainly seen, I mean, people are just amazed by the project. So I think strategically it would make sense for us to consider bringing Hot Maden back to the TSX. So that would make it easier for North Americans. We do recognize that AIM is a difficult market for North Americans to purchase on. So it is one of the scenarios we are considering now. So it is something we will need to decide on short term, whether we do that. But I think there is a strong possibility that we could take that path.
Okay, great. And what's your market cap now?
So market cap in US dollar terms would be about 18 million.
18 million.
18 million.
Okay,
So.
thank you.
All right, great. Thanks, Brent.
I like that project. I've been to it. They've got a significant deposit. Metallurgy is the next thing we got to look at. Looks like it should float, but until we get the metallurgy, that's the big question. Then how they actually raise the money and if they list on the venture exchange. But it's a good project. It's certainly one I've got my eye on and may buy back in again.